Hello and welcome to the English virtual class. The topic for today is Matura revision reading comprehension task. Let's see together. Firstly, reading comprehension practice about a text, then another text. Let's see the first one. You should read the short text and choose the correct answers. Let's begin reading together. Atmosphere of Venus data from the Pioneer spacecraft of NASA apparently prove the theory that the high surface temperature of Venus is due to an atmospheric greenhouse effect caused mainly by a blanket of carbon dioxide. Such a greenhouse effect is created when energy in the form of sunlight easily passes through a planet's atmosphere, warms its surface, and is converted to heat radiation that is then held in by the atmosphere from top to bottom. Venus has a relatively thin atmosphere like the Earth, but Venus' atmosphere consists of more than 90% carbon dioxide compared to less than 4% in that of the Earth. Let's continue with the other part of the text. Try to remember it. Because of its higher percentage of carbon dioxide, Venus' atmosphere traps much more heat radiation than does the Earth. Thus, the Venus studies are believed to be important to the understanding of possible adverse effects on the Earth's agriculture that could result from the long-term use of fossil fuels, which add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Now, let's see some questions related to the text. First one, according to the passage data from the Venus study can be used to A. Measure the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere accurately. 2. Or B. Increase the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. C. Test the efficiency of the spacecraft sent to Venus by NASA. D. Predict future agricultural problems on Earth. Which one do you think is the correct one? Let's see together. It's D, predict future agricultural problems on Earth. Now let's see the question number 2. We understand from the passage that the atmosphere of Venus, A, is thinner than the atmosphere of the Earth, B, contains much more carbon dioxide than that of the Earth, C, traps less heat radiation compared to the atmosphere of the Earth, or D, blocks out dangerous rays from the sun. Which one do you think is the correct one? Let's see together. It's B, contains much more carbon dioxide than that of the Earth. Could you find them correctly? Now let's see the other text. People with extraordinary abilities. Fictional stories about people who have extraordinary abilities have always attracted people's attention. One of them is the story of Vera Petrova, who is able to perceive things with different parts of her skin and through solid walls. One day she comes into her father's office and puts her hands on the door of a locked safe. Suddenly, she asks her father why he keeps so many old newspapers locked away there. Vera's curious talent is brought to the notice of a scientific research institute, and she is given a series of tests by a special commission. Let's continue with the other part of the text together. During this test, she managed to read the newspaper through an opaque screen, and then she describes the figures and colors of a picture hidden under a carpet. During all these tests, Vera is blindfolded, and indeed, except when blindfolded, she lacks the ability to perceive things with her skin. It was also found that although she could perceive things with her fingers, this ability ceased the moment her hands were wet. Now try to keep in mind the text and answer these following questions. Firstly, as we understand from the reading, Vera Petrova, A, can only perceive things with her fingers, B, is a curious child, C, is not the only fictional character who has extraordinary abilities, or D, fails most of the tests administered by a specialist. Which one do you think is the correct one? Let's see together. She's not the only fictional character who has extraordinary abilities, actually. Number 2, it is pointed out in the reading that Vera Petrova loses the ability to perceive objects with her fingers. A. When her father first notices this ability. B, when she is asked to read the newspaper through an opaque screen. C, after she is given a series of tests. Or D, as soon as her hands get wet. This is easy. Let's see together the correct one. As soon as her hands get wet, she loses her ability. Let's continue with the third and last question. According to the reading, A, Vera Petrova's father asks her why she keeps the old newspapers in the locked safe. B, the Scientific Research Institute is not interested in Vera Petrova's talent. C, Vera can't perceive objects with her skin unless she is blindfolded. Or D, there are several scientific research institutes which examine people like her. Which one do you think is the correct one? Let's see together. Vera can perceive objects with her skin unless she's blindfolded, actually. Thank you very much for your attention.